Check. Can you hear me, Ngozi?
Yeah, I can hear you. Could you hear me?
Oh yeah, I hear you now. We good now. I hear you.
All right, all right.
All right,
What's
cool.
going on, man?
Cool. We in the building now. What's going on, bro?
Man, I'm well, bro. Everything's great, man. I'm just, man, been working, moving around hard, tired, exhausted. Just ready to just spread love to the family, man, and get the information out there, man. I want to thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to come on the show and express, what I'm saying, how I feel about certain information out there, and give these brothers and sisters out there this authentic information and science, to elevate the minds of the people collectively.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you, man, for coming on, man. I know it's been all trouble, man. Between work and conflict, yeah, conflict and time schedules and stuff like that. But, man,
Yeah.
we're here now. So, man, I don't know, man. Tell the people a little bit about yourself, man. Tell them about, who you with, you know what I'm saying, as far as Team Osiris and, any degrees or anything you want to talk about, schooling and stuff on the subject matter, you can definitely do so, bro.
Oh, okay. I got a history. I'm Jassy Ngozi. I've been around for years, off and on, in the conscious community. I think it's been about 6.5 to 7 years off and on. I created Team Osiris. We was a spin. I once was part of Honor Rock Squad group, and I created Team Osiris once I left. And Team Osiris is a study group. That's what it is. We created a study group to give out real information and to override.
You muted yourself, Ngozi.
For the pseudo information that's out there. It's not just about destroying people's belief and none of that, but just to give authentic information, because it's a lot of misinformation that's been taught for years in the community. And, we wanted to reveal the charlatans. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I attended Triton, where I got my associate's degree in biology. And then later on, I went to Olivet and then later Chicago State to finish to get my bachelor's. It's just been a long journey. Could you hear me? Am I still on?
I hear you. So what does because I know Osiris is an acronym. What is it? What does it mean?
Oh, well, it means our solution is revealed in science. You know what I'm saying? But it also means one soul infinitely resurrected in spirit. So it's not that we claim use Osiris because we Kemites or we Kemetic freaks. It's just a unique acronym that, we came up with. And plus the logo for Osiris is amazing. So we wanted to use the imagery of it, because we know a lot of people out there in the world are in tune with Kemet. So we don't promote that we're Egyptians or none of that. I mean, I just want to get that clear. It's just the term or the title is catchy. Osiris, one solution is revealed in science, and we also have one soul, infinitely resurrected in spirit. Or our solution is revealed in science. So we wanted to get that out there. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it really means. But we're not by no way Kemite. You know what I'm saying? Kemite boys or people that rep that. We Egyptian and trying to bash Hebrews and none of that. We welcome all and we love all. You know what I'm saying? We just teach the science and give out the authentic information.
Right. And so some of the things I don't know that transpired is, to put you up on speed. We've been talking about a lot of haplogroups, and so, I've seen you. You went out there in the conscious community out there and dealt with Sinetta and them.
Mm-hmm.
What was the experience with that? I know you had what was that experience like, man? I see you go out there and break down some things, man, on Sinetta TV and the conscious community. What was the experience? How was your experience with that?
Well, my experience was good. I mean, it's just, a lot of the people out there in the community, they're not ready for real information. A lot of old, outdated information that we still linger around. We got old skeletons in our closet, in a sense of subconscious, our mind. These old skeletons and old framework or old ideas of what things are supposed to be like. And we're not really acceptable to explaining or elevating past old outdated information. I'm not here to go against, our old elders that came and taught. I'm only here to go up the ladder. I'm sure I would want the next generation to be better or bring better information than what I'm bringing, because things can change through time. You know, we always discovering things as humans. So, I mean, my experience that I had with them, I was around people who really wasn't, you know, they enjoyed it, but at the end of the day, you can feel disliked, uncomfortable. People was uncomfortable in the sense of because it goes against what they believe, and a lot of people look forward towards this thing intuitionally in the sense of, you know, they expect or they're hoping or they feel that it should be one way and it's not, and we shouldn't look at it like that. So when I experienced, you know, being around, you know, Sarnetta and Sarnetta's a good brother, but when I experienced it, I mean, you know, that brother welcomed the light. I mean, he allowed me to express myself and put the information out there through the camera. So I appreciate him for that. But, you know, in between the people that was around me, some people liked it, some people didn't. It makes people uncomfortable because I don't really, I'm not Afrocentric, nor am I Eurocentric. I'm biocentric. I love science. I teach science. Even though we do have to have a defense, we have to be slightly biased because other groups of people are biased when it comes to expressing or explaining information. So with that being said, you know, I try to keep it on the surface to let people know the importance of us and our line within history, to let people understand that, you know, you just wasn't a slave. It's a lot of history when it comes to the black man and black woman. And I keep it at that, but I don't overly do it and say everything was black. I don't blackanize everything because there's much more to our species than black and white. You know, you have these in-between groups as well, especially when it comes to our Western Mediterranean groups, Eastern Mediterranean groups, or swarthy skinned people of the Middle East. So I don't really get in tune with, you know, blackanizing everything. And even when it comes to Egypt, I don't believe in a pure black Egypt. Egypt was never a pure black place. The area and zone of Northeast Africa won't allow Egypt to produce blue black people. And that's misinformation right there for people to think like that. If you study, you know, the skin map or study how ultraviolet rays work, or understand how melanin work or melanin content work or your melanin work, or if you understand the back migrations and certain things that have been discovered to show who these people are and what they were not. We'll admit publicly that the Egyptians were Northeast Africans. Yes, they were. But when you're dealing with North Africa, you're not dealing with one group or one ethnic group of people. You're dealing with Egypt is a transcontinental country. With it being a transcontinental country, it's in between Northeast Africa and the so-called Middle East. It's a gap going backwards and forward, or a gene flow that has been going back and forth for the last 24,000 years. And prior before that, since the Assyrian culture going back from 130,000 to 30,000 years, human beings have been going backwards and forward from the so-called Middle East into Africa. And then as they go backwards and forward, they start to, you know, develop certain differences within their gene expressions or the way their genes express themselves. So with me delivering that and being around the people talking, when I talk on side of the TV, publicly, a lot of people are uncomfortable with it. They don't like the idea of someone coming to, I guess they feel threatened that it's disrespectful to what the elders have taught before. And I'm not trying to do that. I'm only trying to, you know, just add on to what they did.
Right. So let me ask you this, because I know we've been dealing with E1B1A, and like I said, this is, like you said, this is not nothing to be bashing those who proclaim to be Hebrew Israelites, but you know, when it comes to the E1B1A haplogroup, or I think what is a subclade or 38, when it comes to that, what is the deal with that? Because most people are saying that haplogroup is the group for the Hebrew Israelites. What do you think about that?
I think that it's incorrect and it's not valid. EB38 developed in East Africa around, you know, 45,000 years ago. They once said 30,000, but now they're going back saying 45,000 or 40,000. And when it mutates into a specific subclade around Niger, as it travels through the Sahel belt and migrates towards Niger, you have a group of people called, you can find these humans in southern Algeria and in southern Tunisia and Sicily cave art. And you have these, the Tenarians and another group of people that, you know, that which lingered around that border of Africa, but of North Africa. But before that, when we talk about EV38, when it developed in the highlands of Ethiopia, before going through the Sahel and mutating into the subclade EM2, which gave rise to E1B1A, it went west. It never went east. It never went out east. Now, our brother went east. And this is why you find a lot of familiarity between Ethiopians and Somalians. The people that these Hebrews are bashing, that they saying are not, calling them Hamites, it's kind of like crazy and stupid, because you find specific subclade of EP2 or E1B1, which goes into E1B1A and E1B1B. You find specific subclades of E1B1B in the Middle East more than you find E1B1A over there. And if you do find E1B1As over there, and a lot of us don't want to admit to it, it's because of the Arab slave trade, because they transported a lot of groups of people with E1B1A who was primarily Bantu speakers into those areas in recent times. And you can tell based off, if you study the molecular clock, you can look at the time frame, and you can look at the numbering of E1B1B that's over there compared to the short range of E1B1A over there. With the molecular clock, you can tell the time frame of when these people were there. And historically, we know for a fact that there was an Arab slave trade where people were being transported from Tanzania and Zanzibar and certain parts of Uganda, by being caught by other groups of people and being taken over there. And Al-Jahiz, the greatest scientist in the world of Saudi Arabia, was a result of that. So E1B1A, that feature or that haplogroup wasn't over there. And the marker that we do find over there within the E family, and it still stands at 20-something% in the Middle East or Near East, it's E1B1B. You can look into it. Albert Einstein has E1B1B. Even Hitler had E1B1B. A lot of groups of men in the so-called Middle East have this E1B1B subclade. And I'm not even talking about the majority, the marker that, this is the second predominant marker. The first is J1. You know what I'm saying? After J1, we know J1 is an offshoot of JP209. And today, JP209 is classified as JM304. So when we talk about that, we can find out where that J marker comes from when it was linked to IJ. And before that, it was linked to IJK. And we can also find other subclades of that J marker going into the Caucasus or into the Europe area, which becomes independent I. So we have to be careful with that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So basically, when we look at E1B1A, I'm EM2, and
right,
the subclass
of E1B1A,
right, and it's basically, we can see it in West Africa. We can see the migrations of these, you know, and so when we see that, and I heard you say that, you know, when you start dealing with E1B1B, we see it in North Africa, then also make its way over to the
Syria, the Levant,
Levant area. And so when you say haplogroups, basically these are groups of people who did what, basically, and where, I mean, they migrated and isolated themselves. What do you mean by that?
Well, haplogroups are sex chromosomes. You know, all diploids or complex organisms have sex chromosomes. You know, this is your paternal or maternal marker. This is your main line. It doesn't tell your overall race, because you could be a white man with E1B1A. If that marker has been through multiple generations of European women, autosomally speaking, you know, ethnically, the group of people can come out white, but their great-great-grandfather that makes somebody a male somewhere down the line, that main line, ancestral lineage paternally, goes back to a specific, you know, African man if you're a European. So what's going on is that this E1B1A or EV38 migrates out of East Africa. And once it comes out of East Africa, it goes to the Sahel, and then it goes north. It spends time in the Sahara, Tunisia, Algeria. There's been a lot of changes been going on up there. At one time, these group of people didn't even look the way they look until they later started breeding with pygmies and hunter-gatherers in sub-Saharan zones of the Congo area. We're talking about the Kefians and the Tenarians. The Kefian group went through different transitional zones, and they also in the further north, you hear groups of people in North Africa called Iberian Marusian. But the Iberian Marusian groups of people were a result of refugees from the far north Mediterranean and North Africa, and migrants from Southern Europe bringing specific mitochondrial DNA over there, and the Haflin culture, which developed in East Africa. But this is around 20-some thousand years ago. But then when you get into these Kefians who lived in the mid-range in between the Saharian, they were the ones, a few of them kind of escaped. This is why you have E1B1C still in North Africa, and you have E1B1A going south. So once EV38 goes south, of that Sahara, it started to amalgamate or breed with these early populations of humans that's been down there for a long time. And we're talking about when E1B1A first went down there, when they stayed in the Sahel and in that Niger area, we have to deal with, the human globin lineage that's responsible for sickle cell. They developed malaria. I mean, they developed a resistant gene within the hemoglobin levels, which is sickle cell, which fights off malaria. And they started to develop in first two major regions in the Senegambia area and the Niger area. And sickle cell it's good to fight malaria. When the red blood cells sickle and the CoQ10 levels start to decrease, and it's able to resist malaria. So they started to develop that. And then as they kept going down and spending thousands of years down there, we know that E1B1A hasn't been nowhere else because you have over 12 to 13 subclades of E1B1A in West Africa.
Right. So stop right there, because I want you to say that to them again, because as he just stated, within that area, we have, he says 12 to 13 subclads of that haplogroup that's in that area.
Right.
Look at in the Levant area, there's only probably a 4 to 15% ratio of E1B1A that is in that area. If you can explain that a little bit better to them, because this is basically showing us the migrations.
Right. Well, when you go into the Levant, the E1B1A clade, which shows it wasn't that long, is short. It's not that much over there. You might have specific subclade branches of it that was brought there, imported over there as slaves. But when you get into E1B1B branch, like for example, if I bring up the Natufians and we look at their DNA that has been discovered, they got over 8 clades of E1B1B, subclades of it. Now we talking about E1B1B again. This is a little brother to us. So when you get into the genetics of E1B1B that was over there, and we're talking about the Natufians exist almost 12,000 years ago. You have E1B1B1B2, you have E1B1B1B2A, you have E1B1B1B2B, and that's that 40%. You got CTM168, which was the paternal father that gave birth to END, or basal Eurasian branches as they call it. And you have, and because CTM168 gave birth to D and E, and then later E started to spread off or peel off from the CTM168 branch. And you also have our father clade over there, which is E1B1. This is the Natufian. You can look up the Natufians, go to their genetics. It's everywhere. You got E1B1B, which is EP2, which was over there, and you also have E1B1B1B1B1 that was over there. So when you look into it, the ones that we have in West Africa from E1B1A7A, E1B1A8A, E1B1A7, it's too many subclades within tropical West Africa for it not to spend that much time over there. These people have been in West Africa before Hebrews even exist in the way we understand the Hebrew.
Right.
So the way we understand Hebrews, they was over there way before it exists. They was even over there way before Egypt or the pyramids was even designed. We're talking about this is life is much more than 6,000 to 8,000 years. These people have been over there for a long time. And for us to have that many subclades, we have to look at the time frame of how subclades mutate. Subclades can mutate within a zone of 4,000 to 6,000 years. For a whole other marker to develop, you have a 10,000 to 20,000 year range. You feel me? So it doesn't make sense for these subclades to be in multiple spots at multiple times and have these different variants of it for them to just come recently from the Middle East. It takes too much time. If you just came from the Middle East, and I think I don't know what time frame they use, the Hebrews, but it's an AD time period when they so-called supposedly went into West Africa. All of them E1B1As over there, those different multiple subclades, it don't make sense. It takes time to mutate into different subclades within a specific area.
Let me ask you this though, because I'm pretty sure you do know this. Now, when we look at what they say about J marker in regards to what we have with the Ashkenazis and also which we know that marker they picked up that mutation just as well on that marker, as well as other what is it, J1 and J2, and then I think you said J1C3 or something like that.
Yeah. That's the cohene. J1C3 is the cohene marker. That's another subclade to J1.
Okay, now when we look at those, the Igbos, they took a genetic test, DNA test. I want to say probably like some months, probably 6 to 8 months ago. I might be wrong, but I know recently. And what happens when they take this test and there's other Jews that's around the world, not just the Ashkenazis or the Sephardic Jews, but there's other Jews that are around the world that has the same markers as the Ashkenazis. But then we look at the Igbos, they don't have these markers. What would you say to that? Was there some type of migration? Because
no, there was no migration. The Igbo people are traditionally and indigenous to that part of Africa. What happened was they just converted to Judaism. They converted. Their markers fraternally does not match Middle Eastern paternal markers, and it's just not haplogroups that determine this. We're even talking about the human leukoantigen, the lactase consistent gene dealing with milk. Like most people that have E1B1A can't even deal with milk. The Hebrews were goat herders. They drunk milk. So a lot of the original Hebrews had the lactase consistent gene. A lot of West Africans or people that descend from West Africa, you can't even drink milk. You know what I'm saying? Without feeling bloated or without having the runs. Another thing is they test something called PCR SSOP, which is the sequence-specific oligomeric nucleotide probe, which also deals with the time of, which shows the different variations within the HLAs, and it measures the levels of immunities or the loci. When you hear about loci, it's the locus within the genetics, the location. So they're looking at specific locations, just not haplogroups. These people that have been in that part of West Africa, tropically adapted, have no levels of immune responses that's similar to the Middle East. Not at all. Not at all. So what's going on is that these Igbo people were converts, and they've been over there, and they're actually more genetically similar to the Yoruba, their nearby brothers that they hate. That's how silly this stuff is. They're more connected to the Yorubas biologically than they are anybody. The Yoruba, the Akan, and the Igbo are genetically the same. So that's pretty much it.
Right. So, okay, the J markers, man, they come up out of West Asia.
Yeah, near the Near East. JP209, which is today called JM304, it comes out of the Near East, near Iran, Iraq. It spent time migrating up and down to the Caucasus. Some went through the Caucasus and went into Eastern Europe and later became independent with a lot of the European populations today. A lot of the J's went back into the Near East, near Iraq and Iran, and became the single J1. And, that J1 even have subclades, J1C3 in the different markers. But I'm sorry, but go ahead, brother. You were saying action about it? Okay,
yeah, and you basically said what I want you to say. That's basically what you saying you own it, man. And so, and it's funny you said that because when you talked about E1B1A in West Africa, because I'm lactose tolerant, and and this is my first time hearing you say that. But that's funny you said that because you're right. Because I can't listen. If I'm gonna drink some milk and I like milk, it better be when I'm at the house. I know I'm gonna be in somewhere because my stomach. I love cereal. My stomach will get to tripping. Sometimes I even get sick. But I love ice cream and milk and stuff like that. So he's definitely correct on that one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important creatures. I mean, that the Hebrews depend on, and early veterans was they cattle and they sheep and they goats. They drank a lot of goat milk. So the early groups had the lactase consistent gene compared to the lactose consistent gene compared to the groups now due to mixing with different groups of people. It kind of like woo out. But back then that was an important source of energy for them. Where they got their fuel from. So these tropical West Africans, they can't drink milk like that. They can't. They're gonna catch the runs. So that shows you that there is no connection. The Middle East is very important. We're talking about an area where agriculture was mastered. We know agriculture started in Northeast Africa, near Northern Sudan, and we talk about the Natufians. Their paternal lineage, remember, E1B1B comes out of the Horn of Africa. They go out of the Horn of Africa through Egypt, Before they were called Natufians, you had a group of people called the Attilians or the Comarusians. You feel me? So, but by the time they leave out and they go towards, and even when they go into the Mediterranean, if you study the history of North Africa has been mixed for almost 20-some thousand years. You have refugees after the Middle Glacial period, that major one kicks in. You have Southern European immigrants starting to come in to the northern block of North Africa, and you have these East Africans meeting up with them. And later they become, after the Tyrian culture, the Iberian Marusian population. And then after that, you have another group of foreigners coming in called the Capsian culture. The Capsian culture, this is way before, this is where you start to find Jebel Sahaba grave. You feel me? This is when you start to find Jebel Sahaba grave. And, these people are already going backwards and forth from the Middle East. And then by the time the Natufians or the Attilian group gets, or the Comarusian group gets into the Levant, they start to meet up with people from near Turkey. When they meet up with people near Turkey, they start to bring certain alleles, because the human migration, according to what we understand in science, was 60-some thousand years ago, the successful one. We know it was multiple out of Africa migrations, but the first one wasn't successful. So when they get over there, they meet up with humans who was already outside of Africa, who's been isolated for thousands of years and developed their own unique gene expressions, and they start to crossbreed. So these Natufians, even with the back migrations, when they come back, due to specific reasons, and they're going through Yemen and they come finding their way back in Ethiopia, this is where you start to find these so-called mixed Eurasian genes, because they're bringing different sub-clades of E1B1B in that they developed from spending time over there in the Near East for so long, and they bringing a few cousins with them with the T marker. You know what I'm saying? And a few wandering J's even came with them. You feel me? So we got to be careful with that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It definitely. So when you start talking about, what do you know for us when it comes to the Ashkenazis and the Sephardic Jews? I know you heard about the Khazarian theory.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about the Ashkenazis?
Well, the Ashkenazi Jews, they do have, when you look at their genes autosomally, yes, they have mixed with Nordic Europeans, but they've been up there in Germany for a long time. I mean, over 600 years of being up there. But they are at 75%. Jewish genetics is connected to those other Middle Eastern groups. The Bedouins, Palestinians, and even the Italians, the Sardinians, if I'm not mistaken, which was also partially, some of their genes partially comes out of the Middle East. So autosomally speaking, when we not just look at haplogroups, they do have Middle Eastern features autosomally, not overall. So you can find in some Jews or Ashkenazis something that's familiar or similar to the other groups of Middle Easterners, but they have mixed with a lot of people in Europe for so long. So, people like Albert Einstein, he's Ashkenazi Jewish. You can obviously see that this man have a Semitic root. The closest people to what an original Hebrew possibly look like are the Jews of Yemen. You know what I'm saying? The Jews of Yemen have a specific feature that's completely of Semitic, or they could be dark to swarthy skin. And we get that confused because somebody has dark skin or darker skin. We affiliate that, or we associate that with being so-called Negroid or black. And it's kind of like childish to think like that, because you could be dark skinned and have nothing to do with Africa. It's people from India that's dark as space. Phenotypically and morphologically, they're completely classified as Caucasoid, phenotypically, because of the nasal, they don't have prognathism, the rectangular orbits around the eye socket is a certain way, the skull is a certain way, phenotypically, but I don't want to use those terms because they're outdated. They don't really use these terms like Negroid and Caucasoid and all that stuff anymore. But I'm saying phenotypically, so you can be black without being from, dark skin without being from Africa. So when it comes to the Sephardic Jews and the Ashkenazis, they do have features within their genome which shows a Middle Eastern origin. Not overall, but it's there.
Right. And so, like for instance, because when you look at you and I, right, would you tell people how even us, that we know that we E1B1A, we know we got other stuff probably, European, are somebody in us too, just as well. Right. But at the same time, we've migrated so far. I mean, we've how do you say it? We've mutated so far away from what we see some West Africans how they look. I mean, can you kind of see that? Like,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can look at a lot of the diseases that African Americans catch today. You know, lupuses, which is an autoimmunity disorder, type 2 diabetes, all types of conditions that we got or from intermingling. Because we talking about these DNA, this human genome stuff is not being tested for out of racism. It's being tested to produce medicine for certain genes because people's genes express themselves differently because we develop in different geographical locations. So this is medical. This is for medical treatment. So the thing is that African Americans, they have conditions that they wouldn't have had 500 years ago. So, and not to mention that we're a crossbreed of multiple West African groups. You don't just come from one West African group. You might be 23% Yoruba, 15% Fulani, 9% Igbo, 22% Mandinka. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to look at the number, and not to mention that you also have a little British in you, a little Irish in you, and a smaller percentile of certain groups of Native Americans. Some African Americans have higher percentages at 12%, but overall population of African Americans don't have a lot of Native Americans. You have one great ancestor who was Native American, and by the time we get to today's time period, that DNA makes up only 2% to 3%, or sometimes 1%. So what I'm saying is that I'm talking about with Native American lineage, but due to all the crossbreeding and levels of pressure, evolution doesn't stop. Changes is always going on. You know, pressure causes changes. The environmental factors plays a role in it. We have to understand that the genes is expressing itself differently. So even when you look at a lot of the diseases that African Americans have, you have African Americans with cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is a condition that mostly Europeans have, but you have African Americans that catch that. You know, their levels of immunity is not the same as it was in tropical West Africa. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of changes that has been going on within the last 400 years. You know what I'm saying? And it's still going on, you know, at the super micro level, or at the demi level. And eventually, if we stay here for another 2,000 years or 3,000, possibly 6,000 years, you know, we're crossbreeding with different groups of people. People are mixing with different groups of people. You know, it's only 40 million African Americans. We make up 12% of the population of all 277 million whites. The Latino community, when it comes to Dominican, Puerto Rican, Mexicans, it's 47 million blacks that makes up 12%. The Latino community makes up 15%. We're talking about all these people crossbreeding with each other and mixing. So different genes is being exchanged. So we're creating these different hybrid groups right now. The African American is a hybrid. He's a system that has been programmed domestically. He's a domesticated program that has been created in the European backyard. You know, you only had this production. You're a New World man. You know, you're part of the New World people like a Latino. They're a crossbreed between 3 and 1. They got some sub-Saharan African in them, Native American, and Spaniard. You have Western, Nordic, European in you, and different groups of tropical West Africa in you. You feel me? Even with the white people here, they're not one group of white. Most whites in America are German and Irish mix and British mix. They can't tell you, if you ask a white person that's been here for 500 years, where did he come from? He's not going to tell you I come from Ireland. You know, you got to be one of the whites that came here from out of the Great Depression when they started coming over here in 1940, and they know their roots. But the ones probably before that, like people like Bush, he's not 100% German or British. He's going to be a crossbreed between British, German, and Irish. Because when they created the white privilege thing here or white thing here, all whites stuck together, regardless if you were, at one time, the Irish was looked down upon and the Jews was looked down upon. But later on, they was accepted. So what I'm saying is that once you start studying the time period of who these groups of people are, the American period is a hybrid.
Right. So what I'm going to do is I want to send, I don't know how much time you got, but I want to put something up real quick and screen check this out and let me know what you actually think of what I'm going to show you. Let's see. Desktop. And let's look at this and go here. Go here to this link and check on this. Let me know. Can you see this on my screen?
My screen not working really.
Okay, that's right. Your screen. Oh man, your screen not working.
You said the history of gene flow. I see the history of gene flow of Southern Europeans and Levantine and Jews.
Right. So wanted you to read out something. Well, I wanted to read this out to you and let you know, and for you let me know what you think about this, because this has been floating around in the Israelite community, and I think you hitting on a lot of stuff tonight, man, and it's good that you explaining this stuff when it comes to, because I'm learning, bro, like you straight up, you know what I'm saying, and it's information, but when you look at this, right, it talks about the author summary, and what it says there, it says Southern Europeans and European Middle Eastern populations are known to have inherited a small percentage of their genetic material from recent sub-Saharan African migrations, but there has been no estimate of the exact proportion of this gene flow or its. Now, what I want you to look key in on is when it says this part right here. It says, we apply genomic methods to show the proportion of African ancestry in many Southern European groups, 1 to 3%, and Middle Eastern groups, 4 to 15%, right? Mm-hmm. And Jewish groups, 3 to 5%. So when you look at that, basically, is that saying that, you know, basically this out of Africa gene flow, or?
Well, it's three reasons. For example, mitochondrial DNA L21A, which is could you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Mitochondrial DNA L21A. These markers existed in more than one area at one time period. You got bottlenecks, you got extinction zones, you got bottlenecks in genomes as reduction of population. For example, you have L3F1B16 in Spain at 1%. That's a sub-Saharan African mitochondrial DNA, which shows that sometime, whether it was in 10,000 years ago, somebody of a common sub-Saharan African root, because you got to understand something about this sub-Saharan Africa. Some of those markers was outside of sub-Saharan and they were within sub-Saharan. So just because we found them within sub-Saharan zones today doesn't mean that they were there 10,000 years ago. Like, for example, Neolithic European and late Pleistocene Europeans are not the same as modern Europeans. The genes was there, but phenotypically, they didn't look the way they look. There are alleles or genes responsible for phenotype as well. So what's going on is that you find these Jews with these sub-Saharan markers. I'm going to get into L218. That marker of L2 subclade. You find L2 mostly in Central and West Africa, but you also find it in Poland and you also find it in Syria. And they possibly went over there in the pottery B culture around 10,000 years ago. You find it over there. And you also find people that were near Yemen who were crossbreeding with people from the Horn. The Horn of Africa near Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea is sub-Saharan Africa. It's below the Sahara South. So you find certain sub-Saharan genes there. For example, if you go to Somali genes and you look up Somalian human leukoantigen, and then you get into, you can go to, what is it called? You can go just type up Somali genetics. You can use Wiki. Wiki has a good source, but you can also use Plus. You can also use, there's a lot of articles that talk about the Somali genetics. And you look at their immunity, or that's not the mitochondrial DNA, but if you look at the mitochondrial, when we get into the human leukoantigens that we talked about, which is immunity, it says human leukoantigens of the Somali populations are not categorized by those international ethnic groups. We analyzed HLA's antigens in 76 unrelated Somalis who lived in England. HLA ABC and DRB1 typing performed by the polymerase chain reaction using the sequence specific of the oligonucleotide probes, which is what I brought up earlier, which is called the PCR-SOP, at low intermediate resolution levels, phenotype frequency. Gene frequency and haplotype frequency were used to study the relationship between the Somalis and other relevant populations. The antigens with the highest frequency were HLA A1, A2, A30. This is the human leukoantigen. This is the immunity responses. B7, B51, and B39, CW7, and CW16, CW7. Population with B7 and CW7, B39 and CW12, and B51, CW16, B57, CW18. The result of human leukoantigen class of two frequencies shows that the Somali population appear to be more similar to Arab or Middle Eastern than African populations as a result of consistent gene flow and the cultural historical evidence of common in the origin of Somali populations. So what I'm saying is that you have these certain markers. That's why it's so low. It was never high there. You have certain markers that was going in and out of the Horn and through North Africa at one time that was going into like Southern Europe and certain parts of the Levant. especially when it comes to the pottery V culture. They find L2 over there, and they also find certain subclades of L3 over there. Those are sub-Saharan markers. But this is basically coming from the maternal lineage. And we know mitochondrial DNA is the powerhouse of the cells. But this that I'm reading is based off the human leukoenzymes, which is their immunity. So you're going to find some African features within Jewish autosomal DNA, whether it's through certain similarities of their immunity, or whether it's through the mitochondrial DNA at their low percentile. Then you got to look at the time period when did the mitochondrial DNA come over there, because you got to remember the slave trade that was going over there in the Middle East. And not to mention, before that, you had sub-Saharan African mitochondrial DNA going over there, like I said, 10,000, 11,000 years ago, but it was low. When you look at the overall mitochondrial DNA in the Middle East, it's not sub-Saharan African. And that's why when you just read that, it's at a low percentile.
Right. That's man, I'm telling you, like, if y'all want to know anything about this stuff, this brother been dropping this information for the longest, and when you begin to even look and read some of these things, like even what he just said, he said it earlier as far as dealing with slave trade, it went on. And then when you start going up and you look at the introduction of what I've just read, if you notice something, look at what it says here. It says it says by applying the method to Eurasia, it says we show that the dates in Southern Europeans are consistent with events during the Roman Empire.
See?
Right? How you say subsequent Arab migrations. The dates in Jewish are older, consistent with events in classical or biblical times that may occur in shared history of Jewish populations. But when you start looking at some of these events that took place, Roman Empire and subsequent Arab migrations. So, a lot of that has to do with a lot of these gene flows coming up out of, Africa, going into the Levant area, as well as I think E1B1B is up in West Europe too, right?
Yeah, E1B1B. That dude, he was everywhere. Like E1B1B was even around in certain percentiles of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. He's everywhere because you got EV13 subclade and EV12 subclade. You also found a grave in Spain, 7,000 years old, E1B1B. You know what I'm saying? Like those dudes is everywhere. These are the fathers of the Berber, the Somali, the Amharic speaking Ethiopians, certain people in Yemen. But we're talking about when it comes to the language family. And another misnomer that the conscious community don't understand is the language family, Afroasiatic language family. Hebrew is part of the Afroasiatic language family. Arabic is part of the Afroasiatic language family. Medu Neter is part of the Afroasiatic language family. Berber or Amazigh or Amazon language is part of the Afroasiatic language family. And when you look at the markers or the DNA of these people, it's all similar. We're talking about just not a triangular trade, because Egypt or in Syria and all these people had a triangular trade for a long time. Before that, these people have been going in and out. So the immune responses to people in North Africa, Southern Europe, and the Levant is going to be similar because they develop in similar temperatures. They have ate the similar food for accumulation of thousands of years. And the language stratum is all of Afroasiatic origin, period. And it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? It makes sense. Some people like to try to say Hebrews spoke Bantu. No, they don't speak Bantu. Bantu is a later feature of African language. When we deal with linguistics, Bantu is part of the Niger-Congo family. So is Mandinka and so is Fulani. You have a proto stage of Bantu. So you got the Bantu migration, which goes on 3,200 years ago, and you have the proto population of Bantu speakers goes 6,000 years ago. Yoruba is part of the Niger-Congo family. That's classified as Volta-Congo or Atlantic Congo. Mandinka is Atlantic Congo. Fula is all part of the same Niger-Congo family. But Niger-Congo linguistically is a hybrid because we have possibly pastoralist nomadic. We talked about the Keithians, but before that, possibly a Proto-Afroasiatic or Arthurian speaking group of men that probably brought the EV38 down there and amalgamated with these early hunter-gatherers who spoke possibly Niger-Saharan languages. That's a cousin to Nilo-Saharan languages. And through time, it crossbred and became Niger-Congo. And then from Niger Congo, it starts to separate and become Mandinka, Yoruba, and Bantu means people. This is a specific dialect or certain stratum that they spoke through within a certain area of the Congo before they start to spread out. But it's all Niger Congo compared to the Afro-Asiatic speakers. The genetics will be the same, the immunities will be the same, and this is why you see similarity phenotypically amongst Somalian, Egyptian art, Middle Eastern art. You know, some of the Middle Eastern stuff is foreign, and a lot of the phenotype that they classify as Middle Eastern or Eurasian or Caucasoid is completely African. The Hofmeyr skull proves that, and that's 30,000 years old, and it developed in Africa. So, yeah, E1B1B was everywhere, bro. He was involved in everything, and that's the little brother to E1B1A. You know, some people want to go up and say he's the big brother. Some people want because we both stripped from EP2, but we went in our own direction, westbound and north. They went north, Middle East, and back.
So being if a person, according to the biblical text, if a person is an Israelite, should they have some of these Middle Eastern markers?
Yeah, well, conversion to the faith is different in the mentality because to be a Jew or to be a Christian is not a specific marker that you have to be converted. Because, you know, symbolically speaking, for those who believe in Christ, or, you know, it's about converting. Like if you believe in Christ and you become a Christian, you technically become an Israelite. If you convert to Judaism, you become an Israelite. It's not about a specific, but the authors of that tradition or the authors of those systems were created by a specific type of people. And these people came from the Middle East, and they're going to have a Middle Eastern feature. This is why these so-called scientists came up with this so-called Cohen gene or an Aaron marker from the priestlyhood, J1C3. And then they turned around and talked about the 26%. Like if you look up Jewish E, and it talks about the E1B1B subclade, which is classified as the Jewish E. But that's the lower number compared to the higher percentile of J1, which is J1C3. So yes, you're gonna have a Middle Eastern feature if you originally come from the core, or if you originally the authors of the storyline. I'm not talking about a person that converts later on because your faith is your faith, and if it works for you and make you a better human, that's what's important. But the authors of it or the core source of those belief systems, they have a specific gene expression that's unique to those people, and it's all going to look the same. And you can see this gene expression amongst the Buba clan, the Limba, which has it at, they don't, not the overall Limba group, but the Buba clan within the Limba group has a specific J1C3, which showed a group of men from Yemen went down there. Their immune response, because they mixed with Bantu speaking women for so long, it's going to probably be a Bantu. Like, for example, you got African Americans who have R1B markers from their European great great grandfather, R1B N269.
Now hold it right there, bro. You said that you have African Americans that have R1B, and that's crazy. You said that because you said from their European great may have been slave masters, right?
Right.
Now the R1B, that is the origin of that, isn't it West Asia? I mean West Europe?
No, the R1B comes from R1 and R1 comes from R, and they probably developed around either PM45 gave birth to it near Central Asia, near Kazakhstan, and later it migrated. The oldest marker of R we find in Siberia from the Maltai boy, which goes back 24,000 years. Before it was R, it was PM45, which developed somewhere in between, you know, far Central Asia, near Kazakhstan or whatever. And before they went into Europe, remember, it was the Yemenite, which was the pastoralist horsemen that drank milk drinking Russians that brought the R1 marker to Europe. And before it was in Russia, it was somewhere near Turkey and near that Central Asia area. They also was responsible for bringing the Indo-European language. So by the time they made it to Britain, those subclades started to mutate, like the M69 branch of it started to mutate in Europe. But the original R comes out of Central Asia or near southern Siberia with the Maltai boy. And you look up the Maltai boy, Y chromosome, the oldest branch is R. So it goes from R around 20-some thousand years ago, and then it goes all the way down to this different subclades, R1A and R1B, and then R1B starts to spread out and it goes into a different direction. But the father of R is PM45, and that dude, he was somewhere near, you know, Kazakhstan. See, it's a lot of similarity between these European, even Australoids, as dark as they are. European, Neolithic Europeans, Australoids, and early Middle Easterns have a lot of similarity amongst one another. And I'm not trying to, it's just because these are all part of these outer African migrants. These are all Eurasians. You have basal Eurasians. Basal in science means branch off base. When you branch off base, you can either go in two directions, B, E, and C. And you have, when you get into the Aboriginal Australians, they have the CM130 branch, and they have different C branches, mitochondrial DNA S, which is the daughter to N, which comes from L3 mitochondrial DNA, which shows the mitochondrial DNA route through time period. So again, these are just haplogroups. But again, immune responses, iron levels, metabolism. You got chunks of DNA that's responsible for different things for how you respond biologically. You feel me? Overall. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Yes, because we got a guy, man, he's R1B, and I told him, because I was like, man, that may be from your slave master.
It is. It is. It is.
When you study
when you study genetics, 30 to 20% of African American men have Y chromosomes from their great great grandfathers who was European. Majority is 70% is E1B1A, but you have African Americans who have, and don't let them trick you, because they want to get tricky and they talk about the Hausa. And Hausa has a specific subclade of R1B. They have R1B VA8. If you got R1B M269, that shit came from a British or Irish man who raped your great great grandmother. And most of the African Americans who have R1B, it's M269, or it's a specific subclade that comes out of Europe. And what happened is that these white men raped these black women, gave birth to a biracial son that looked like Minnie Kravitz, and this Minnie Kravitz looking dude turned around and had sex with another black woman. So autosomally speaking, he have by now for 400 years more sub-Saharan African allele than what he would have had 300 years ago. The further he go back in time, the further he can be able to see his European features. But the more and more this mulatto kept breeding with these different sub-Saharan African women and kept giving birth to boys, this is to what you see today. So you could be black as space today, but have a Y chromosome that comes from your great 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 grandfather that comes from Britain or Ireland, and it's not of the Middle East. It's not of Central Asia. And to be honest with you, the R1 branch was really low amongst the original Semitic speakers. Because if you wasn't J predominantly, or that subclade of E1B1B, those were the real Semitic features, or what people that spoke the Semitic languages had. R1 was always low amongst Middle Eastern people. You know what I'm saying? R1 is responsible for the Indo-European language family, not Semitic.
Right. Man, going in, and Ngozi from Team Osiris going in. Y'all see what it is, man. I know they mad at me, but hey, man, I'm learning. Definitely, man. Okay, what would you say? Because I know it's getting late. I'm gonna ask you one more question, man. Then I'm gonna let you go. You gotta get up to work tomorrow. What would you say about other groups that we see as the Jews, man, in the world? Because you know, a lot of these guys, they feel like that the Ashkenazis and the Sephardics is just the only group. How do these share something genetically with each other? And even though we, you know, well, you know, well, I would say, how do they, you know, what do you feel about these groups? What do you know about these other groups around the world and genetically connected with each other?
I mean, when it comes to the Jews, man, you know, it's just not the Ashkenazis or the Ashkenazis or the Sephardics, even the Arab. The Arab is closer to original Hebrews than anybody. The Jews of Iran, the Moroccan Jews, you look at their mitochondrial DNA, it's Semitic. Paternally, they have a different lineage than most Moroccans. Most Moroccans or Algerian Berbers, mitochondrial DNA is H, U6, or M1. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's M1A, A1A1, or M11AC branch of mitochondrial DNA. But these specific people have, that's why, you know, if you deal with Judaism, they base it off the maternal lineage. They used to base it off the paternal lineage. So I don't get how it happened, but no, the Jew, like even Arabs, we're talking about a Semitic speaking people. All Semite or Semitic speaking people have similar gene expression. Whether it's the Ashkenazi, I don't give a fuck if he stayed up there for 700 years and screwed 1,000 European women. Somewhere down the line, autosomally, you're going to find a Semitic feature. Or you're going to find that Middle Eastern feature that's similar to other groups of people in other areas. You find it amongst the Ashkenazi, you find it amongst the Arabs, you find it amongst the even the Amharic speak of Ethiopians, Habesha, as they call themselves. You know, you have within their human leukoantidote immunity or certain things, autosomally speaking, iron levels or whatever, it's similar to Middle Eastern somewhere down the line because there's been a cross zone for Semitic speakers and these Cushitic East Africans. They've been breeding for a long time, you know. But on the Jewish level, you got Ashkenazi, you have Sephardic, you have the Jews of Iran, you got a specific group of Jews in India, you have the Jews of Yemen. And I think the Jews of Yemen are the best example of what a Jew or original Hebrew look like. You know what I'm saying? And they all have a special feature that's similar to one another. You know, you can see that regardless. Some a little bit further than others, especially the Nordic ones or the Germans or the Ashkenazis, because they've been mixing with white women from Germany for so long. But those features still show there genetically. It's still there.
Right. So basically you can be, because a lot of people ask, well, how did the Jews start off this color and then end up another color? You know, and they ask that question, like, you know, and you just answered that question actually, because, you know, if they've been in this area for so long, if they took on women, you know, there was of a different different race, or so to speak, those women start, I mean, those children are starting to look like more
They'll
like.
start to look like it. It's like, well, for example, we talked about the African Americans with the R1Bs. If I dug up an African American skeleton with R1B marker and I looked at his genome, if the genome was able to be preserved and it's not developed in a hot, dry climate, or it's in a cooler environment where genome can be preserved, and I look at his DNA, I say, damn, he got R1B. But we know what mostly the R1B phenotype looks like overall to date. He looks nothing like his great great grandfather from Britain or Ireland. So why this dude, he got these sub-Saharan African features? His skeleton or the morphology is similar to these sub-Saharan Africans, but when you abstract his DNA, it's European. I mean, with his paternal lineage. So what I'm saying is that it's based off the or the Buba clan with the Limba. They don't look like the people that brought that mark over there to amongst 50% of them or 46% of them. When them Yemenite people first came over there, the people of Yemen, they had a certain feature. You know, they look like the people that you see over there. But now, due to them mixing with those black women, they've been over there, I think, for 2,300 years. They will look like a Bantu speaker today. Their language family is even Bantu. You feel what I'm saying? So, you know, this is what happens when you're around different groups of people. But the people that stayed in the Near East and in the Middle East, they were still able to retain their features because they kept breeding with the same genes that was there since the beginning. Right. So when you go into Yemen and look at the Yemenese Jews, they are an example of what a Semitic person looked like, or the southern, the Socotra Island, the Arabs of Socotra Island. They are an example of what a Semitic person looked like. The southern Semitic languages are way older than the northern Semitic languages because the northern Semitic languages have been filtered. They have been crossbreeding with Greeks, Indo-Europeans, and different groups of people. You go into the southern Semitic language families near Yemen and Oman, or the Socotra Island, they have a little bit more ancient features. And Proto-Semitic itself, before developing in the Middle East, it came out of Africa. And E3B sub-clade carriers could have brought it there. That's why it's important to study the Natufians, the Attilians, or the Hammurabian groups, which was responsible for giving rise of bringing that stratum of Afro-Asiatic into the Middle East. Then J markers, before they became Semitic speakers overall, they had an isolate language that went extinct, and they amalgamated with these people and created these different languages. The oldest established Semitic language, not written, but established linguistically, is Akkadian. And then you get Ugaritic. Then you get this thing called Paleo-Phoenician. And then you got Paleo-Phoenician, you have Mudar, and you have Nabataean script. Nabataean script is possibly responsible for giving rise to this later Arabic bullshit. You feel me? But it's all Semitic. Arabic, all of it Semitic. And even Amharic. Migrants from the Near East migrated back into Ethiopia because the Ethiopian Cushites and the people of Yemen had a trade route going before Aksum and Damat. So these people of Yemen, these Cushites from the Horn of Africa, was already in West Yemen, crossbreeding with each other, and they established something called Damat. Damat collapsed and became Aksum. This is the Sabian Empire. This is when you deal with the later history of King Azana, who had Prometheus, who was Syrian. They had a Syrian connection, Greco-Phoenician Syrian, who converted King Azana into Christianity. And a lot of the early other groups of Hebrews were the Beta Israel or the Falasha. They were Jews because they were going. They already had a relationship with the Jewish population. Now all this stuff happened through trade. You feel what I'm saying? So it's funny.
Well, Ngozi, man, I definitely appreciate you coming through, man. Is there any last thing that you want to say to the people out there, man? How can they contact you, man? And at a later date, man, because I know a brother reached out to me. He definitely wanted to contact you. Information about his DNA or his genetic, he went and took a DNA through ancestry.com, I believe, and also through 23andMe, and he wanted to talk with you on some things. So I'll link him up with you on Facebook. But any last things you want to say, man, and before we end this tonight?
Man, I just want to say peace and love to the family. I thank everybody. If y'all want to reach out to me, you can catch me as Amir Quantum on Facebook, or really just catch me through Team Osiris Facebook page. Team Osiris, you can go through Team Osiris and everything. If you want to ever talk or communicate with me, just go through Team Osiris through our YouTube channel and through the Facebook page. And we also have a website. Just type of Team Osiris, you'll see it all there. And I thank you, brother, for allowing me to have the opportunity to build, man, because this information has to be put out there. It's not to go against people's faith, because I have a belief in the Most High as well. It's just to give people an understanding of how things really work. And you don't have to feel that because you don't so-called possibly play a role in the way that you want to play a role in these texts, that you don't have to be connected to it. The faith is not about that, or any faith is not about that. The faith is not about genes and biology and science. This is a belief that you use because you relate to it mentally, and it helps structure your life and guide you in a specific direction. And we need to cut it out. You can still be a Hebrew. You can still be that. If your mentality is of a Hebrew or whatever you want to call yourself, if your mentality is that, that's fine. But when it comes to science, you have to be truthful about things. The mentality is what's really important. And that mentality, if you use that to help you build your character, instruct you, and help you feel a certain way, it's fine. Again, there is no so-called Jewish lineage to conversion. There are plenty of people that practice Judaism or even Islam. Islam teaches you, if you speak Arabic, you're Arab. That doesn't mean that you are the original people that created the core sentiment of the Arab language. You feel what I'm saying? So we got to get out of that, man. So I just thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to talk, to communicate with the people. And I'm hoping, they enjoyed this demonstration.
Definitely. I appreciate you, man, for coming out, man. Peace to you, brother. I'm definitely going to share this. I wish we could have did it a little bit more earlier to have a little bit more viewers, and then possibly put it. I didn't get a chance to put it on YouTube, but I'm definitely going to put it on YouTube. It's going to circulate through the groups. We're going to push it, man, through the groups so they can get the information. Definitely appreciate you, man. Hopefully we can have you back here.
I'll come back anytime, LeRon. You my brother, bro. Anytime. Got you.
Definitely. And then, I'll be going to Chicago, so we'll try to get you on camera and chop it up, get some information too, just as well, man. Peace and blessings. Love you, man. Be easy, bro.
Peace, God. Peace and love. Peace, brother. Thank you. Peace.
All right, cool. So y'all can see that the brother Ngozi come through. And like I say, we do this thing, man, because it's like you said, it's really not about, as far as what you see yourself genetically, it's really about, something other than what you can spiritually connect to. And that's really important. We only doing this, because if you want to go the scientific route, we can do that. But for the most part, I know, and as that brother know, that that's not really what it's about. You know what I'm saying? Like, if a person wants to convert to that belief, and then that's what they is, you know what I'm saying? And the scriptures even say that. It says that what it says about a person that is spiritual, and they worship God spiritually, what they are to God, you know what I'm saying? And Jews, many years genetically connected with Christ and stuff like that. But in reality, he says that, you are of your father, the devil. And this is a spiritual mindset that he was really looking at, you know what I'm saying? And so when we start dealing with what that brother was dealing with tonight, he said it, basically, it's not so much genetically that makes you these people, because that wouldn't even matter for real. That plays a role, but for the most part, it's really more important than that. And Christ even established and showed that, You know, when he said that, look, you're not getting in because you're this blood, because you're blood. You know what I'm saying? You're getting in because you have to be born again, born of the Spirit. And he said that to Nicodemus. You know what I'm saying? So I think for the most part, a lot of people, they get mad and they say, well, in Ngozi, you know what I'm saying? You know, he deals with something that's entirely different. But to be honest, you know, the brother, man, he deals with the information, even though he's Muslim, and you know, he deals with the science. I think that we need to get off into the science to understand certain things and natural phenomena that help to explain even, you know, the very Godhead. The Bible says, it talks about in the Bible in Romans, it says that it says the things that are seen are seen, or the things that are seen explain the things that are unseen. So as we look at the natural things in the world, it helps us to understand the things that are unseen. And most people might take that and run with it and say, well, we can look at the natural things and try to explain the intelligent designers, or to explain the Godhead away, or the eternal power away. But, you know, and that's been done. But for the most part, we can also see that, you know, this is Christ. I mean, this is the word, you know, being manifested in the flesh, showing us, you know, that everything that is in the material world traces back to this intelligent being, you know, and some people, they don't relate to it as being, you know, the God of the Bible as we look at it, you know what I'm saying, but they take it in another way. And we believe that it is the God of the Bible, you know what I'm saying? And we believe in what we see, that God was manifested in the flesh and came to, you know, die for our sins, basically, and to restore man back to his original dominion, which he had, and to establish man that he may rule in harmony with God, and also be indwelled with the Spirit of God, you know, and that God may be all in all. So that's what we're dealing with. But man, I appreciate that, brother, coming on. I'm gonna go back and listen to some of these things, because we was just dealing with, you know, basically, you know, arguing and discussing with these brothers about, you know, haplogroups, but he took it on a whole nother level and really got to talking about, you know, far as like, you know, dealing with, you know, what is it, what people are tolerable to, far as when it comes to lactose tolerant, and, you know, different things of that manner, uh, that, you know, other groups could not, you know, really, they couldn't really digest some of these things without, you know, causing problems. And so he brought out a lot of those things, you know, that dealt with those things. And I'm gonna go back and listen to that, because that's very important that we do, because it's when you start dealing with mutations and dealing with genetics and stuff like that, he took it on a whole nother level, to where it's best to where, hey, look, we need to get off into a little bit deeper. Like I say, that's why I brought him in here. The brother is well, you know, spoken, and he also, you know, studied this stuff, and he went to school for this stuff. We got this guy here. His name is Isaac Tarver. This dude ain't got no schooling in this area, but you see that he's speaking on these things, and he has no schooling in these areas. So I decided to bring somebody in here that does have the schooling. Look at a couple of these comments, because I know people are saying certain things. So let me look at a couple of these comments. Let me get up out of here real quick. Let's see. Go back. Get out of the screen share. How do you stop screen share? All right, let's stop that. So let's look at a couple of these comments. Mic check. 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 Make sure you guys can hear me. I was just talking. I don't know if y'all can hear me. Okay. What's going on, Shazmo? Peace to you, brother. Yeah, man. So we got Isaac Tarver. He said his opinion is not unbiased. I know about the migration patterns. from reading the Old Testament, combine that with genetics tells the truth. Okay, cool, cool. You know, like I say, man, like the brother he wasn't biased with it or nothing, man. He was really just telling it what it was. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the brother did an excellent job. I think that we can go back, we can listen to this and what he said about E1B1A. Where the origin of it at, where the migrations of those things are at, and basically where it went to, you know what I'm saying? And so only a low percentage went outside of Africa. And the one that he said it has been everywhere is E1B1B. And so we can kind of see when he talked about autosomal, we can see the DNA, we can see that within those Jews that are in different areas, you know, you got the Sumerian Jews, you got the Iranian Jews, Iraq Jews, Moroccan Jews, Sephardic, Ashkenazi, also the Buba tribe among the Ethiopian Limbas and stuff like that, and the Yemenite Jews. There's so many sects of Jews that you can't just say that you can't just come out and just say, well, these people don't traditionally, you know, or genetically connect to each other, because they do. When they take these tests, they realize that these groups are related to each other, and they're related closely, because you can do a test and say, well, as he say, that, you know, see that there's a close relation there, and then we can look biblically and look at the migrations as well as with extra biblical sources. And so the very people that say that they are Jews, are they related to this movement, then they just do the gene test and find out that these groups are related to other groups that culturally tie back. And so when we start looking at the Igbos, that's just not the case, man. And as you heard him, he talked about that the Igbos are just genetically, it's not there, but it doesn't matter for real, because what it means to be a Jew is really something that is beyond DNA, basically. And so, you know, and I think that you know, he's not trying to put anybody down, but you can tell that the brother know what he's talking about. You know, I've watched these guys, listened to guys on and really, because we are limited to the equipment that we got and that brother Ngozi got, is we couldn't really bring up some of the slides. But if I would have had Khufu in here, excuse me, we would have brought up some of the slides, and those slides would have basically told you, and we got pictures, like these guys got pictures of these guys. These slides would have told you of some of these different groups and where they came from, and how, you know, you got to with Ashkenazis and the different colors of Jews, and like he said, a lot of these markers, they predate even Abraham himself. You know, even if you want to put it on a 6,000 to 7,000 year, a lot of these markers still predate Abraham himself. So these are markers that came beforehand. And so, man, you know, I think it's best that we just start really just looking at that. If nobody has the you know, the schooling behind it, you shouldn't be getting up there really, you know, trying to say, well, this is just solid, that this is what it is, and where are you getting that information from? And when we find out that people are saying this E1B1A marker is this Israelite marker, supposedly, I mean, who are they getting that from? You know, no one that actually went to school would actually say that. You know what I'm saying? Because we know that E1B1A, it stayed where it was, and only a low percentage made it outside of Africa. And that's just not the case when we start looking at the migrations of Israel. These people were born in the Middle East. They were born there. They came out of there. And so why is it that you find the whole, like he said, you find E1B1A, he said it's like 12 subclads of that. It's in Africa alone, letting you know that that's where it came from. So you don't find a migration of E1B1A coming into Africa. You see the E1B1A is going outside of Africa, right? And if you guys are saying that, if you're saying that this is the Israelite marker, then it should be to where the reverse ran around. you should find that marker coming majority into Africa. I mean, majority in the Levant area, and then later on coming into Africa, and then there's been a limited amount that's in Africa. But that's just like if I had 16 kids, or and all my family lived here, and then someone when they got older they decided to move out to across seas somewhere. You can look at, and they picked up some mutations, and you can look at wherever they went at, as far as looking at pressures and environments or to diet and this and that. You can still be able to trace them and say that all the way on the other side, that and say, well, this person is connected to this group that's over here, and we see that this group that's over here picked up this mutation in America, and they're predominantly in America, and the rest of the people migrated to across seas. And we find little traces to where when they migrated across seas, someone made a split that way, someone made a split that way. But for the most part, we could definitely see that these guys have came from me. You know what I'm saying? And so this is the case. If Levi go off and Levi being as light as he is, you see Levi, and you see also my daughter, and they go and they marry, Levi go and marry a white woman or another ethnicity, then you can see that, he's going to produce something that's of a lighter color. And then if his son go and marry, and they're in the environment they take on white women, so to speak, then you're going to keep seeing to where this child is picking up and mixing autosomally with these different markers and creating phenotypically or phenotypes that we can see that is looking more and more like Europeans. And so that's just, and so, I mean, the brother put it down tonight, man. So y'all can hate on it. As he said tonight, when you talked about genetics, he said that a lot of these people are using, doctors are using these things, because of certain things that genes carry in it, certain immune, some of them are immune to certain things. And also, there's studies on that. There's studies on certain things that they use to help as far as medicines and stuff like that when it comes to genes. And when you look at the diversities of a lot of genes, you see, are really in Africa. A lot of genes that haplogroups and also subclass coming up out of those areas that you can study on and possibly create, all types of vaccinations out of those genes, basically. And so that's the whole thing, man. I'm tired, but at the same time, man, I appreciate the brother coming through. Shout out to the sister Raquel. Man, peace to you, Isaac, man. I just think that, brother, you taking it the wrong way. E1B1A, bro, like, you ain't gonna get it, ain't gonna do it, bro. You should have something, as he stated, you should have something, some Middle Eastern markers, bro, like, and most of those Jews got those markers, bro. Most of them got those markers, man. And so we can see that the Igbos is more so converts, man. That's just it, man. And this brother brought out a lot of information, man, really explaining a lot of those things. It's funny he talked about, being lactose tolerant because, man, I'm telling you, like, he hit that on the money. That's my first time ever hearing him saying that. I never knew that, but now I can look at it and say it's the truth because I'm EM2, which is a subclass, which is E1B1A, and like I say, milk gives me the runs. It hurts my stomach, but at the same time, sometimes it don't, sometimes it do. It depends, but for the majority of times, I know already it's going to give me the runs that make my stomach hurt. I love milk, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes I can't drink it because it has different, it gives me consequences. I got consequences with it. Once I drink it, I better be right there by the toilet because they run straight through me, like straight through me. And so, cheese and all that. I don't even eat cheese on my burgers and stuff. That's really crazy, but I don't eat cheese on my burgers and all of that because it does something to me. A lot of cheese, it runs me off. And so, man, that brother was on point, man. Peace and blessings to that brother, man. You know, Karsu, what's going on? Stephen Tilly. Rob, what's going on? Ben Nazar. Like I say, this brother been around for a long time. What's up, Kifa Ben Yazrael? Been around for a long time, man. So it ain't like people don't know what was going on, man, and what the information is saying. But with that being said, man, peace. Make sure y'all subscribe. We're gonna be doing some things probably in the future. Um, Pulling out the charts, man, scan charts, migration patterns, and you know, once we learn how to work this a little bit better. So with that being said, man, make sure y'all share this, pass it around, so we can get the views up on it, so people can look at it. And also, I'm gonna post on my YouTube page this as well. Go there, subscribe to G Consciousness. Consciousness is spelled with a K. Make sure y'all subscribe. Make sure y'all also come here and hit that indication button. You know what I'm saying? That way, you guys, that follow button. That way, when I go live, you guys can go ahead and just, you know, I mean, watch, tune in, you know what I'm saying, and know when I'm going live. So with that being said, I'm tired. Peace.